The massive alien salvage ship drifted silently through the void, its hull covered in layers of battle scars and patched metal. It was a vulture of the stars, preying on the remains of war-torn battlefields, harvesting whatever scraps of technology and resources it could find. This time it had stumbled upon what appeared to be an abandoned human warship floating lifelessly amidst the debris, a lucky find, or so they thought. Inside the seemingly derelict vessel, Captain James Reed sat in the dimly lit bridge, his fingers hovering just above his console. His crew of 50 had been playing dead for 3 long days, their ship powered down to the bare minimum, its hull masked by a sophisticated camouflage system. They had survived countless encounters like this before, each one a high-stakes gamble where one wrong move could mean death. Now, as the alien salvage ship drew closer, their game of patience was nearing its climax. "Status report," Reed whispered into his communicator, his voice barely audible despite knowing the enemy couldn't hear him through the ship's special shielding. "Engineering reports, all systems ready, sir." First Officer Tom White responded just as quietly. "Shadow drive is running silent. They see exactly what we want them to see, a broken warship." Reed allowed himself the ghost of a smile. The UEES Phantom had earned its name time and time again during the border wars. Unlike other warships that relied on brute force, the Phantom was something different entirely, a specter in the dark, humanity's most elusive weapon, a prototype stealth destroyer capable of shifting its outer appearance, deceiving enemy sensors with illusions so convincing that even experienced captains fell for the trick. One day it was a harmless cargo freighter, the next day formidable battleship, and now it was nothing more than a shattered relic drifting through space, or so the aliens believed. The salvage ship loomed over them now, a behemoth of metal and machinery. Through the bridge's reinforced windows, Reed watched as its mechanical arms extended, reaching out to claim its prize. The scavengers had no idea what they were about to wake. "All hands to battle stations," Reed ordered, still in a whisper, "but nobody moves until my mark." Throughout the ship, 50 men and women tensed in their positions, ready to spring into action. Once they had been part of a crew of 300, but war had whittled their numbers down to the best of the best survivors, ghosts just like their ship. A loud metallic clang echoed through the Phantom as the salvage ship's first magnetic clamp latched onto its hull. Another followed, and another. Reed could almost hear the aliens celebrating their discovery. Human warships were built with rare materials and cutting-edge technology, valuable prizes on the black market. These scavengers thought they had hit the jackpot. Sir White called from his station, "They're powering up cutting beams. They're going to try and slice us apart." Reed nodded. "Just what we were waiting for. Stand by." The alien ship had sealed its own fate. Its clamps locked it to the Phantom, its systems now vulnerable to what was about to come. A faint red glow flickered across the bridge as the cutting beams ignited, preparing to carve into the ship's hull. It was the last mistake the scavengers would ever make. "Phantom crew," Reed said, his voice steady, "light her up." In an instant the warship roared back to life. Emergency hatches slammed shut, trapping the alien clamps in place. The Phantom's hull plating, which had absorbed energy from the salvage ship's scans, now pulsed with power, feeding the ship's systems. The once lifeless husk was now awake, a beast ready to strike. The aliens had no time to react before their own magnetic clamps turned against them. Massive feedback surges shot through their systems, frying circuits and causing their ship's lights to flicker wildly. Their sensors scrambled, and panic would have erupted among their crew. "Show them our true face," Reed ordered. The shadow drive activated, and the Phantom's appearance shifted in real time. Gone was the scarred, broken wreck. In its place stood the sleek, deadly form of humanity's most feared warship. The Phantom had returned. The alien vessel tried to retreat, but it was already too late. They were locked in place, prisoners of their own greed. The Phantom's gunports slid open, revealing a battery of precision laser cannons. "Target their engines and weapons only," Reed commanded. "No unnecessary casualties today." A hail of laser fire erupted, cutting through the salvage ship's defenses as if they were made of paper. The battle was over before it even began. Within moments the enemy vessel was dead in space, its engines burning, its weapons useless. "Open a channel," Reed said. White nodded, and moments later the crackling voice of the alien captain came through, laced with barely contained terror. "Please, we surrender. We didn't know this was the Phantom. Everyone knows the Phantom was destroyed in the Battle of Seven Suns." Reed couldn't help but smirk. "Reports of our destruction were greatly exaggerated. You have 10 minutes to evacuate to your life pods. After that we're taking everything of value from your cargo hold. Consider it payment for trying to salvage a ship that didn't belong to you." Panic rippled through the alien crew as escape pods began ejecting from their ship. Reed watched carefully as each was scanned for hidden weapons or traps. This wasn't the first time someone had tried to deceive them. It wouldn't be the last. Sir White said, glancing at his console, picking up multiple distress calls from their pods. They're calling for military backup. Reed nodded, his smirk widening. Good, let them call. By the time anyone arrives, we'll be long gone. As the final life pod launched, the Phantom's crew moved with precision, stripping the disabled salvage ship of its illicit cargo. They had performed operations like this countless times before, quick and efficient, always moving before enemy reinforcements could arrive. There were few friendly ports for a ship that officially no longer existed, and they had to be self-sufficient to survive. With their work nearly complete, Reed retreated to his private quarters. On the wall, an old star map was pinned above his desk, filled with red markings that mapped out known alien activity. Somewhere out there, Earth's government still fought to maintain its fragile existence, bound by a forced surrender to superior alien forces. When that surrender was signed, Reed had been ordered to scuttle the Phantom to erase its secrets forever. Instead, he and his loyal crew had taken the ship into deep space. Vanishing from official records, they had become a myth, a legend. White's voice crackled over the intercom. Captain, you need to see this. We found something in their cargo hold, military-grade weapons, brand new, factory sealed. Reed's expression hardened. Document everything, copy their computer data. I want to know where those weapons came from and where they were going. He turned back to his star map, tracing his finger over routes marked with scavenger sightings. A pattern was forming, one that suggested the war might not be as over as everyone thought. The Phantom had started as a ghost ship playing dead to survive, but now it had become something else entirely. A shadow in the dark, a nightmare for those who dared to threaten humanity. And if Reed was right, the galaxy would soon remember why even the mightiest alien powers feared the sight of a single human warship appearing on their scopes. The alien distress calls still echoed across space, but the Phantom was already a ghost slipping into the darkness. Its crew worked efficiently, securing the last of their spoils from the wrecked salvage vessel. Captain James Reed stood on the bridge, watching as the alien military vessels rushed toward the coordinates where they had left nothing but a broken ship and scattered life pods. By the time the rescuers arrived, the Phantom would be long gone, leaving only whispers and fear in its wake. Reed turned to his first officer, Tom White, whose expression was one of cautious curiosity. Set course for the rendezvous point, Reed ordered, his voice calm but firm. We need to process what we just uncovered. The Phantom's engines rumbled to life, and within moments, it faded into the vastness of space. The stolen cargo had raised serious questions that needed answers. The weapons they had found weren't standard-issue salvage, they were brand new, military-grade, and still factory sealed. Someone, somewhere, was preparing for a war. As the Phantom entered its stealth cruising mode, Reed retreated to his private quarters. He unrolled a worn-out star chart, marking locations where similar, salvage, ships had been sighted. A pattern was beginning to form. Each marked point lined up perfectly with key border regions where human colonies had mysteriously fallen silent in the past year. The official reports had called them accidents, meteor impacts, reactor malfunctions, pirate attacks. But Reed had never believed in coincidences. A soft chime from the ship's intercom pulled him from his thoughts. Captain, you need to see this, White's voice crackled through. We decrypted a data file from the alien ship's mainframe. It's a list of shipments, destinations, and recipients. And sir, one of those recipients is supposed to be dead. Reed's brow furrowed. He didn't ask any more questions, he simply made his way back to the bridge. White was already pulling up the data on the main holoscreen. The decrypted files showed a detailed ledger of weapons, supplies, and coordinates, but it was the name on the recipient list that made the air in the bridge grow heavy. Admiral Castor Voss, White read aloud, his voice barely above a whisper. Reed's grip tightened on the edge of the console. Castor Voss had been one of Earth's highest-ranking fleet commanders during the war. A brilliant strategist, a ruthless tactician. He had led humanity's forces in their last great stand, and had supposedly gone down with his flagship when the armistice was signed. That's not possible, Reed muttered. Voss is dead. We saw the wreckage. White hesitated before responding. Maybe that's what we were meant to see. A silence settled over the bridge as the implications sank in. If Castor Voss was alive, it meant two things. First, someone had covered up his survival. Second, and more importantly, he wasn't sitting idle. He was amassing weapons. He was preparing for something. And given the locations on the ledger, it wasn't hard to guess what that was. He's building a fleet, Reed said, exhaling sharply. A hidden one. White nodded. And judging by the quantity of these shipments, it's not a small one either. He's planning for a full-scale conflict. Reed's mind raced. If Voss was alive, why had he remained in the shadows? Why had he allowed Earth to believe he was dead while stockpiling weapons through back channels? The only answer that made sense was one that sent a chill down Reed's spine. He doesn't trust Earth's leadership anymore, Reed realized. He's going to take matters into his own hands. The implications were staggering. If Voss had truly survived, it meant he had spent years operating under the radar, gathering resources, and preparing for something Earth's government either wasn't aware of, or worse, was choosing to ignore. White studied the star chart on the screen. Sir, these shipment routes all lead toward the same region of space, deep in the Perseus expanse. It's mostly uncharted, but there are rumors about old warships and abandoned colonies out there. If Voss is hiding anywhere, it's in that sector. Reed took a slow breath. He had served under Admiral Voss once. He had respected the man. But if Voss had truly abandoned Earth's command and was working in secret, that meant Reed and his crew had a decision to make. Did they find him, or stop him? The Phantom had always been a ghost ship, a legend among the stars. But now, it was heading towards something far more dangerous than any alien warlord or salvage crew. It was heading toward the truth. Set course for the Perseus expanse, Reed ordered at last. If Voss is out there, we're going to find him. And we're going to get some answers. The Phantom's engines flared, its shadowy form vanishing into the darkness once more. Whatever lay ahead, one thing was certain, this was only the beginning. The Phantom's engines burned low, its stealth systems humming as it cut through the void of space. The coordinates were set and the course was clear, deep into the Perseus expanse where Admiral Castor Voss had supposedly vanished years ago. Now the man was no ghost, he was orchestrating something in the shadows, building something that neither Earth nor its enemies were meant to see. Captain James Reed intended to find out what. The bridge was silent except for the soft hum of consoles and the quiet murmurs of the crew at their stations. Tom White, Reed's first officer, studied the star chart's eyes scanning the data as the Phantom drifted into the unknown. We'll be entering the expanse in less than an hour, White reported. Long-range sensors are picking up scattered debris fields and some faint power signatures. Nothing conclusive yet. Reed nodded but said nothing. He was too focused on the possibilities, the what-ifs that came with their mission. If Voss was truly out here, if he had survived the war only to hide and amass weapons, then they were about to uncover something far more dangerous than a simple salvage operation. Status on the Shadow Drive, Reed asked. Fully operational, White confirmed. Will be invisible to standard sensors. If anyone's out there watching, they'll see just another drifting piece of debris. Reed exhaled. It was a gamble coming out here. Even with the Phantom's stealth capabilities, the Perseus expanse was known for its treacherous conditions, gravitational anomalies, derelict battlefields from conflicts long forgotten, and the occasional pirate stronghold. But Voss wasn't a pirate. He had been one of Earth's finest military minds, a man who had once sworn to defend humanity. The question was, who did he think he was defending them from now? The minutes stretched as the Phantom closed in on the first set of coordinates from the decrypted files. A vast debris field loomed ahead, broken hulls of alien and human ships alike floating in the darkness like tombstones in a forgotten graveyard. Bringing us in slow, White said, fingers dancing over the controls. Something's off. These wrecks are old, but there's movement. Reed stepped closer to the main viewscreen. Sure enough, in the distance faint lights flickered through the wreckage, not just random sparks from damaged ships, controlled movement. Something or someone was out there. Run a deep scan, Reed ordered, see if you can match those signals to anything in our database. The Phantom's sensors pulsed outward collecting data. The response came back seconds later and White's expression darkened. Captain, these aren't random ships, they're beacons. Someone's using the wreckage as a listening post, and I'd bet everything I have that it's not just scavengers. Reed's jaw clenched. Voss, he's using the old battlefield as a sensor net. He wants to know who comes and goes. It was brilliant in its own way. No one would suspect a dead battlefield to be an active surveillance grid. It meant Voss was watching. He knew they were here. Go dark, Reed ordered, engines to minimum, all power to stealth. We need to see what's watching us before it sees us. The Phantom systems shifted into full silent. Running the ship became little more than a shadow gliding between the floating wreckage, slipping past the beacons with careful precision. The crew held their breath as they moved deeper into the graveyard. Then. Contact, White's voice cut through the tense silence. Unidentified vessel emerging from the wreckage. No transponder codes. It's moving directly toward us. Reed's fingers curled into a fist. Visuals. The main screen flickered, bringing the image of the approaching ship into view. It was sleek, dark, almost like the Phantom itself. It had none of the telltale designs of Earth's Navy nor the sharp angular hulls of alien warships. It was something else entirely. No known matches, White muttered. Whatever this is, it's not standard military. Reed didn't need a database match to know what he was looking at. This was a ghost ship, not in the way the Phantom was, but something deliberately hidden, something that had been built outside the reach of any known government. And that meant one thing. Voss, Reed murmured, he's not just hiding, he's built his own fleet. The realization sent a cold shiver through him. If this was just one of Voss's ships, then what else was lurking in the depths of the expanse? How many more were out there waiting, unseen, unknown? The unidentified vessel altered its course slightly, still approaching, but not on an intercept trajectory. It was testing them. Watching, Reed could feel it. Hold course, he ordered, let's see what they do. The Phantom drifted, its systems locked in silent observation. The mystery ship did the same. For minutes the two vessels floated in the dead of space like predators, sizing each other up in the dark. Then the ship made its move. A single pulse of energy shot from its hull, not a weapon but a signal, a message. White frowned as he analyzed the data. It's an encoded transmission, but it's using an old Earth military cipher, a deep-class encryption only used by high command officers during the war. Reed's pulse quickened. There was no doubt now this was Voss's doing. Can you crack it? Reed asked. Already working on it, White said. A few more tense seconds passed before the decryption completed. Got it. Message reads, welcome to the abyss, follow or turn back. Reed exhaled sharply. This wasn't a threat, it was an invitation. Voss knew they were here, and now he was giving them a choice: walk away or step into the unknown. Reed glanced at his crew. Every one of them had followed him into exile. When they refused to scuttle the Phantom, they had all sacrificed their lives as known citizens of Earth to become ghosts in the dark, fighting battles no one else dared to acknowledge, and now they stood on the edge of something even greater. Take us in, Reed ordered at last. Let's see where this path leads. The Phantom's engines flared back to life and the unknown vessel pivoted smoothly before accelerating away, leading them deeper into the expanse. Whatever awaited them at the end of this journey, Reed knew one thing for certain: Admiral Castor Voss wasn't just hiding. He was waiting. The darkness of space stretched endlessly, but for Captain James Reed and his crew aboard the UE Phantom there was no such thing as true emptiness. Every shadow could hide an enemy, every silent transmission could mask a deadly message, and every seemingly lifeless ship could be a trap waiting to spring. As the Phantom drifted beyond the wreckage of the alien salvage vessel, its hull still warm from the brief but decisive skirmish, Reed knew they were far from safe. Sir, we're picking up something on long-range sensors, Lieutenant Tom White reported, his voice steady despite the tension that hung in the air. Looks like another salvage ship. No, wait, it's bigger than the last one, and it's not alone. Reed leaned over the console, his sharp eyes narrowing as he analyzed the data streaming across the screen. The readings told him everything he needed to know. This wasn't just another opportunistic band of scavengers. This was a response force. The aliens had been too quick to react, too coordinated. That meant only one thing: someone had anticipated this encounter, someone had planned for it. Damn it, Reed muttered under his breath, they were expecting us. The realization sent a chill through the bridge. For years the Phantom had operated as a ghost, striking from the darkness and disappearing before anyone could pin it down, but ghosts only remained legends as long as they stayed unpredictable. If the aliens had learned to anticipate their moves, the Phantom was in more danger than ever before. "Orders," Captain White asked, his fingers poised over the tactical controls waiting for Reed's command. Reed didn't answer immediately. He studied the screen, weighing their options. The enemy fleet was closing in, but they hadn't altered course. That meant they hadn't yet pinpointed the Phantom's exact location. There was still a chance to slip away, to become nothing more than another ghostly rumor drifting through the void, but that wasn't Reed's way. If these aliens thought they could set a trap for the Phantom, then it was time to show them just how wrong they were. "Helm, prepare for evasive maneuvers. Keep us running dark, but angle toward their flank. I want them thinking we're still a drifting wreck until the last possible second," Reed ordered. White, "Prep the shadow drive and stand by for a full power surge. We're going to make them regret coming after us." The Phantom moved with eerie silence, slipping through the vast expanse like a predator stalking its prey. The alien vessels continued their approach, scanning the wreckage of their fallen salvage ship, unaware of the danger lurking just beyond the debris field. Minutes passed like hours. Reed could feel the anticipation building among his crew. Every heartbeat felt like a countdown to something inevitable, and then, just as the enemy fleet reached the remains of their fallen comrades, Reed gave the order. "Light her up." In an instant the Phantom shed its disguise. The ship's battered exterior shimmered as the advanced hull plating shifted, revealing the sleek, lethal form beneath. The shadow drive roared to life, flooding the ship with energy, and in the blink of an eye the Phantom surged forward. The enemy barely had time to react. The first salvo struck with pinpoint precision, tearing through the lead vessel's shields before it could even raise its defenses. Explosions bloomed in the darkness, their fiery glow reflecting off the Phantom's unyielding hull. The aliens scrambled to respond, their fleet breaking formation in panic, but the Phantom was already in motion, weaving through their ranks with deadly precision, striking and fading before they could lock onto its position. "Multiple hits confirmed," White called out over the chaos. "They're trying to regroup, but they weren't expecting this kind of assault." "Good," Reed said, his voice calm amidst the storm. "Let's make sure they never forget." The Phantom twisted and turned, delivering calculated strikes that crippled the enemy's ability to fight back. The aliens had set a trap, but they had underestimated their prey. Reed wasn't just another captain trying to survive, he was a hunter, and this was his domain. "Captain, picking up a new signal," White suddenly shouted, his face going pale. "It's not part of their fleet, it just dropped out of hyperspace." Reed's eyes flicked to the sensor display. A massive warship loomed on the edge of the battlefield, its silhouette unlike anything he had seen before. This wasn't just another salvage crew or a lightly armed response team, this was something far more dangerous. "What in the hell is that?" one of the crew whispered. The ship was enormous, dwarfing even the largest vessels in the enemy fleet. Its hull was adorned with symbols Reed didn't recognize, its energy readings spiking off the charts. This wasn't just another piece in their ongoing battle, this was a game changer. "Looks like we just got their attention," Reed said, his grip tightening around the armrest of his chair. White, "Full analysis. I want to know what we're dealing with." "Helm, prepare for emergency evasive maneuvers. Whatever that thing is, we are not engaging it head on." The Phantom veered away from the enemy fleet, its engines burning hot as it pushed for distance, but the alien warship wasn't just standing by, it was moving fast, locking onto the Phantom with eerie precision. Then, without warning, a voice crackled over the Phantom's comms. It was distorted, layered with static and an unnatural cadence, but even through the interference the message was clear. "You cannot hide forever, Phantom. We see you, we know what you are, and this time you will not escape." A cold dread settled over the bridge for the first time in a long while. Reed felt something he rarely allowed himself to acknowledge: uncertainty. "Sir," White said, his voice low, "they know us, they know exactly who we are." Reed took a slow breath, pushing down the unease curling in his gut. If this enemy thought they had the Phantom cornered, they were about to learn the hard way that ghosts were not so easily captured. "Then let's remind them what happens when they chase ghosts," Reed said, his voice steady. "Helm, set a course. We're not running, we're leading them straight into the abyss." As the Phantom plunged into the unknown, the legend of the ship that refused to die grew once more, and in the depths of space a new enemy watched, waiting for its moment to strike. The Phantom drifted through the void, its sleek form blending seamlessly with the darkness of space. The crew remained silent, their training and instincts guiding them through the tense moments following their latest encounter. Captain Reed stood on the bridge, his gaze locked onto the vast expanse. Before him, the remnants of the disabled alien salvage ship were now distant specks in the rear, sensors abandoned and lifeless. As the ship moved through the star-strewn abyss, Reed's mind replayed the events that had unfolded. The revelation of the smuggled military-grade weapons had changed everything. This wasn't just a routine salvage operation, this was evidence of something far more sinister. If these weapons were being funneled through seemingly harmless traders, then someone was orchestrating a hidden war. Captain White's voice broke through the silence, his tone sharp. "We've decrypted some of the data we retrieved from their computers. You're going to want to see this." Reed turned, motioning for White to bring the information to the main display. The bridge dimmed slightly as the holographic interface flickered to life. Strings of alien text scrolled down before being translated into something readable. A series of coordinates, dates, and cryptic messages filled the screen. White highlighted a specific section. "This right here, sir, it's a rendezvous point. A supply exchange was scheduled to happen in 3 days. At these coordinates, whoever they were working for is expecting a shipment." Reed studied the data carefully. The coordinates placed the meeting point near the ruins of an old battle site, a debris field left over from the war between humanity and the Galactic Union, the perfect place for a clandestine exchange. "Looks like we just found ourselves an invitation," Reed said, his expression hardening. "Set course, we're going to see who's behind this." The Phantom moved through space like a shadow, its advanced stealth systems ensuring it remained undetected. The journey took them deeper into the borderlands, where the wreckage of forgotten battles drifted like silent tombstones. As they approached the designated coordinates, the crew prepared for whatever they might find. Reed stood near the central command console, eyes narrowed as he watched the sensors. The rendezvous point was still empty, but that wouldn't last. If the data was accurate, their targets would arrive soon. "Engage passive scans," he ordered. "I want to see them before they see us." Minutes ticked by in tense silence, then the sensors picked up a distortion, something moving through the wreckage field. A ship, large but maneuvering carefully. It wasn't alone. A second vessel, smaller but heavily armored, appeared moments later. "Looks like we have our guests," White muttered. Reed nodded. "Hold position, let's see what they do." The crew watched as the two ships moved into position, aligning themselves as if preparing for a transfer. A data burst was exchanged between them, encrypted but undoubtedly the confirmation of their deal. "They're waiting for the shipment," White observed. "They don't know it's not coming." Reed smiled grimly. "Then let's give them a different kind of delivery." He turned to his weapons officer. "Target their engines and comms arrays. We don't want them calling for help." "Aye, sir." With a silent command, the Phantom's weapons came to life, precision laser batteries locked onto their targets, the ship's advanced targeting systems calculating the perfect angles. Then, in the span of a heartbeat, the Phantom struck. Beams of energy sliced through the void, striking their marks with deadly accuracy. The larger vessel shuddered as its engines flared and died. The smaller one attempted to react, but a second volley disabled its communications in an instant. Alarms blared across both ships as their crews scrambled in confusion. The Phantom remained unseen, a ghost in the darkness, striking without warning. "Move in," Reed ordered. "Boarding teams, be ready." The Phantom's thrusters flared as it closed the distance. Within moments, the docking clamps engaged, locking onto the disabled ships. Reed led the boarding party himself, stepping onto the airlock platform as the seal engaged. As the doors slid open, the first thing that greeted them was chaos. The enemy crew had been caught completely off guard, their defenses crippled before they even knew they were under attack. "Secure the bridge," Reed commanded. "We need their logs intact." His team moved with practiced precision, sweeping through the corridors with efficiency. The enemy resistance was weak, a handful of confused and panicked crew members attempting to fight back. They were subdued within minutes. Reed and White reached the bridge where the alien captain was frantically trying to wipe the computer systems. One of Reed's soldiers fired a stun round, dropping the alien before he could finish the job. White moved to the main console, quickly accessing the system. "They were trying to erase something, sir, but I think I can recover it." Reed folded his arms, watching as White worked. The seconds stretched into minutes then. "Got it," White said, pulling up a recovered data file. "This isn't just an arms deal, this was a scheduled resupply for an entire fleet." Reed's stomach tightened. "A fleet? White nodded. Not just any fleet, a hidden force scattered across multiple sectors, slowly gathering strength. Whoever these weapons were, for they're preparing for something big. Reed exhaled sharply. The implications were staggering. This wasn't some rogue smuggling ring, this was something far more dangerous. Copy everything, he ordered, and make sure these ships can't be traced back to us when we leave. As his crew worked, Reed glanced at the vast emptiness outside. The Phantom had uncovered something far greater than any of them had expected. The war that had supposedly ended was far from over. And they were standing at the edge of its rebirth. Let's finish up here, Reed said, his voice firm. We've got work to do. Weapons were part of a larger operation. It meant the war wasn't over, it was merely shifting into a new phase, hidden beneath layers of deception. Reed took a deep breath, his fingers tightening against the armrest of his command chair. The distress signals from the alien life pods had no doubt been picked up by their military. Enemy ships would be searching the sector, eager to capture or destroy whoever had interfered with their covert dealings, but they would find nothing. The Phantom had long mastered the art of disappearing without a trace. Navigation set a course for the outer drift zone. Silent running. We'll ride the radiation pockets until we're clear of their scan range, Reed ordered. Ethan Voss, the ship's navigator, nodded and adjusted their trajectory. The Phantom drifted like a ghost among the debris field, mimicking the erratic movement of space junk, ensuring that any searching vessels would dismiss it as nothing more than cosmic trash. The bridge was silent except for the low hum of the ship's systems. The crew had grown accustomed to these high-stakes encounters where survival depended on precision and discipline. They had defied the odds for years, operating outside official jurisdiction, ensuring that humanity's enemies never had the luxury of peace. Reed turned to his first officer, Omar Das. What's the latest on those weapons? Das checked his data pad, his brows furrowing. We've decrypted a portion of the cargo manifest. These weren't just stolen weapons, they were manufactured under an alias, supposedly scrapped or reassigned after the war ended, but the timestamps are recent. Somebody's been producing high-grade human weapons and feeding them into enemy hands. A cold weight settled in Reed's gut. Traitors. Das nodded grimly. And well-connected ones. We cross-referenced the serial numbers with old military databases. Some of these weapons come from stations that were supposedly decommissioned after the surrender. If someone's been rerouting weapons on that scale, it means the war effort isn't just happening in the shadows, it's being orchestrated from within. Reed exhaled sharply. Then we need to find out who's behind it, but first let's make sure no one's following us. He turned to Callie Rhodes, the communications officer. Any sign of pursuit? She shook her head. No direct pursuit, but long-range scanners picked up movement along the outer system. A few patrols, nothing in a direct intercept course. They're searching for something, us or their missing shipment. We'll need to be careful. Reed nodded. We always are. He leaned back in his chair, his mind already calculating the next move. If there were traitors within human space, they needed evidence, something solid enough to expose whoever was fueling the enemy. The weapons shipment was a start, but it wasn't enough. They needed a supply chain, a name, a face. Das, start analyzing any logs we pulled from the salvage ship's computers. Trace the supply routes. Look for recurring patterns. If there's a major player moving this much firepower, they didn't do it alone. Already on it, sir. Time was against them. The Phantom couldn't stay in one place for too long, not with so many eyes hunting them. They had to move, to strike, to vanish, always one step ahead. And as the Phantom slipped deeper into the black, Captain Reed knew that this war was far from over. It was only just beginning. The Phantom glided through the cold abyss, its presence masked by the cutting-edge stealth technology that had made it a legend. Every system hummed at near silence, every light dimmed to avoid detection. Captain James Reed sat at the helm, his fingers lightly tapping against the metal armrest of his chair. His mind was racing, turning over the implications of what they had discovered. The stolen weapons they had retrieved from the alien salvage ship were not just standard black market arms, they were military-grade, fresh from human production lines. That meant one thing: someone within humanity's own ranks was supplying the enemy, someone high enough to bypass security protocols and smuggle weapons into enemy hands without raising alarms. The question wasn't just who, it was why. Lieutenant Omar Das stood beside the central tactical display, eyes narrowed as he traced possible routes on the holographic map. Based on the cargo logs we pulled from the salvage ship, we've identified 3 primary supply routes, he said. 2 of them seem like minor smuggling operations, individual shipments disappearing into unmonitored trade zones, but this third one, He pointed to a flashing red line that stretched from deep within human-controlled space to a remote sector at the very edge of their star maps. This one is different. It's been active for months and the volume of shipments is too large to be a coincidence. Someone is running a full-scale operation out here. Captain Reed leaned forward. Where's it leading? Das hesitated. An abandoned military outpost. Officially it was decommissioned years ago after the war. Reed's expression darkened. He had seen too many decommissioned sites turn into something else entirely. If someone had taken over that station and was using it to funnel weapons to alien forces, it meant they had far more resources and coordination than a simple group of rogue smugglers. This was something else, something bigger. Reed turned to Ethan Voss, their navigator. Set a course, approach with caution. We don't know what we're walking into. As the Phantom adjusted its trajectory, Callie Rhodes, their communications officer, glanced up from her console. I'm picking up encrypted transmissions from the station, she reported. It's not standard military code, but some of the patterns match human protocols. Reed's stomach clenched. That was the confirmation he needed. This wasn't just some backwater criminal outfit. Someone inside the human military, or at least someone with deep knowledge of its systems, was involved, and if they had managed to stay hidden for this long, it meant they were smart, dangerous. As they neared the station, it came into view on the bridge monitors. It was massive, far larger than Reed had expected. Rusted hull plates and flickering lights gave the illusion of an abandoned relic, but beneath the surface the truth was clear. Cargo ships moved in and out of its docking bays with practiced precision, their flight patterns too coordinated to belong to simple scavengers. The station's power signature, though subdued, revealed a complex network of systems still running at near full capacity. Someone had turned this abandoned outpost into an operational hub. Das exhaled sharply. They've been using this place for years. Reed nodded grimly. The question is, for what? They couldn't risk exposing themselves just yet. Charging in, guns blazing, might destroy evidence they needed, and if they were wrong about the scale of this operation, they could be facing something far larger than a single rogue faction. That meant one thing: they needed to go in quietly. We'll send a small team aboard, Reed decided, gather intel, plant surveillance devices, and find out who's running this operation. Das and Voss immediately volunteered, along with 4 of their most experienced operatives. Each of them had been through Black Ops missions before, but the tension in the room was palpable. They weren't just infiltrating an enemy base, they were walking into human territory, and that made it personal. As they suited up in stealth gear and armed themselves with silence pulse weapons, Reed briefed them one last time. Stick to the shadows, get what you need, and get out if anything goes wrong. His voice trailed off, but the implication was clear: they might not make it back. Das smirked, shouldering his rifle. We'll be ghosts, Captain, just like the Phantom. Reed watched as the infiltration shuttle detached from the ship, slipping toward the station like a shadow in the dark. The shuttle drifted silently toward the station, its stealth plating keeping it hidden from the outpost sensors. As they neared, Das guided it into a maintenance hatch near the lower docking bay. They bypassed the access controls with a decryption module, slipping inside without triggering alarms. The interior of the station was a stark contrast to its exterior. While the outside looked decrepit and abandoned, the inside was very much alive. The corridors were clean with functional lighting and security checkpoints manned by well-armed personnel. But these weren't standard soldiers. As Das and Voss hid behind a supply crate, they got their first real look at the station's guards. Their armor was unmarked, their weapons custom-built. They weren't wearing any insignia. No faction, no allegiance. Mercenaries. Not military, Voss murmured, at least not officially. Das scanned the hallway. That makes them even more dangerous. No rules, no restrictions, just a paycheck. Moving carefully, they advanced deeper into the station, using maintenance tunnels to avoid detection. Every corner they turned revealed more unsettling truths: weapon crates stacked in neat rows, fuel cells being loaded onto transport ships, and encrypted data terminals running silent operations. This wasn't just a supply hub, it was a command center. And then they found it. A control room, its walls lined with screens displaying star charts, fleet movements, and something even worse: classified human military data. Das cursed under his breath. They're not just supplying the enemy, they're spying on our fleets, feeding them intelligence. Voss pulled out a data spike. Let's copy everything we need to show Reed. As the files transferred, the weight of their discovery settled in. This wasn't just some rogue operation, this was a betrayal at the highest levels. Someone with access to humanity's most sensitive information was selling them out, and that meant the war wasn't over. Just as the download completed, a voice crackled over the station's intercom, "Security teams to Sector 4, we have an intruder alert." DOS exchanged a look with Voss. "They found something. We need to move now." With their mission complete, they retraced their steps, slipping back toward their entry point, but as they neared the docking bay, the station suddenly lurched, metal groaning as the airlock sealed shut. Someone was trying to trap them inside. Voss swore, "They know we're here." DOS activated his communicator. "Phantom, we need immediate extraction, we're compromised." Reed's voice came through, calm but urgent, "Hold position, we're coming to get you." As alarms blared throughout the station and armed guards rushed toward them, DOS and Voss raised their weapons. The battle for survival had begun. And the truth about the real war was about to be revealed. The final part of the Phantom's story begins in the vast emptiness of space, where silence is often the prelude to devastation. The Phantom, a vessel that had become both myth and nightmare to humanity's enemies, drifted like a specter on the edge of the battlefield. Captain James Reed stood on the bridge, his fingers gripping the edges of the console as he watched the enemy fleet closing in. This was it, the moment they had been waiting for. The galaxy had long whispered of the Phantom, of the ship that refused to die, and now, they would see why. The alien fleet had responded faster than anticipated. Distress calls from the salvagers had reached their military counterparts, and now, a force of warships loomed ahead, their weapons trained on what they believed to be a mere relic of a past war. Reed knew better. The Phantom had not survived by luck alone. It was a predator that thrived in the darkness, striking where least expected. The enemy fleet was larger, more heavily armed, but they lacked one thing: the Phantom's ability to become something else entirely. "Shadow drive status?" Reed asked, his voice steady despite the tension crackling in the air. "Fully operational, Captain," Lieutenant White responded, his fingers flying over the console. "They still think we're just another derelict." Reed allowed himself a small smile. "Good. Let's make sure they keep thinking that until it's too late. Prepare to shift appearance. Make us look like a refugee transport." In an instant, the Phantom's hull shimmered, its deadly form replaced with the battered exterior of a civilian vessel in distress. It was an illusion, but to the alien sensors scanning the area, it was reality. The enemy fleet hesitated, unsure whether to fire. That hesitation was all Reed needed. "Deploy the decoys," he ordered. From the Phantom's underbelly, several small pods launched, emitting distress signals that mimicked civilian transmissions. The enemy ships, wary of public backlash, held their fire, scanning the pods for survivors. That was their mistake. "All weapons online. Target their command ship," Reed commanded. The Phantom's guns roared to life, energy pulses streaking across the void. The lead warship shuddered as its shields buckled under the onslaught. The aliens scrambled to respond, but the Phantom was already shifting again, its hull adopting the appearance of one of their own vessels. Confusion erupted within the enemy ranks as their targeting systems faltered, unsure whether they were facing a human warship or a rogue member of their fleet. "Sir, incoming transmission from their commander," White reported. Reed gestured to put it through. The alien leader's face appeared on the screen, its features contorted in a mix of rage and fear. "You cannot be the Phantom," the alien hissed. "That ship was destroyed." Reed leaned forward, his voice cold and unwavering. "Then why are you talking to me?" The enemy commander hesitated, and in that moment, Reed struck again. The Phantom unleashed a barrage of precision laser fire, slicing through the fleet's defenses. Explosions bloomed in the void as ship after ship fell to the Phantom's relentless assault. The remaining vessels tried to retreat, but the Phantom's trap was already set. Mines deployed earlier detonated in perfect sequence, cutting off their escape routes. "They're panicking, Captain," White reported. "Orders." Reed watched the chaos unfold, his mind calculating their next move. "Disable their engines, but leave them alive. let them return home with a message. And what message is that, sir? Reed's eyes darkened. That humanity is not to be trifled with. The Phantom's final shots crippled the remaining ships, leaving them adrift. Then, as quickly as it had appeared, the Phantom vanished, its shadow drive rendering it invisible to sensors. The legend lived on, more terrifying than ever. As the Phantom disappeared into the void, Reed turned his gaze to the old star map on his desk. The war was not over, but today, they had reminded the galaxy of a simple truth: some ghosts never fade. And as long as the Phantom sailed the stars, humanity would never be forgotten. The end, or perhaps, just the beginning.